So this lesson covers the properties that you use in Algebra 2, and it covers SOL A2.3F. The first set of properties that we're going to cover are the identities, inverses, and zero properties. The additive identity property is when you add 0 to a number, the number stays the same. So 6 plus 0 is always 6, and A plus 0 is always A. The multiplicative identity property is when you multiply 1 and a number, the number always stays the same. So 6 times 1 is 6, and A times 1 is A. The additive inverse property is when a number is added to its inverse, or the negative form of that number, it's always going to end up as 0. So 6 plus negative 6 is 0, and A plus negative A is 0. The multiplicative inverse property is where a number times its reciprocal, or the fraction form of that number flipped over, is always 1. So 1/2 times 2 is 1, and A times 1 over A is always 1. The multiplicative property of 0 is when you multiply any number times 0, the answer will always be 0. So 6 times 0 is 0, and A times 0 is 0. The next set of properties that we will cover is operational properties. The first operational property is the commutative property, which is where data can be added or multiplied in any order. So 3 plus 2 and 2 plus 3 are both the same thing. Or A times B and B times A is the same thing. The associative property is where regrouping the numbers or changing the placing of the parentheses doesn't change the answer. So the quantity of 6 plus 1 plus 3 equals 6 plus the quantity of 1 plus 3. Or A times the quantity B times C is equal to the quantity A times B times C. The distributive property is where the number in front of the parentheses gets multiplied by every number inside. So 9 times the quantity of x minus 3 is the same as the quantity of 9 times x minus the quantity of 9 times 3. The reflexive property says that every number equals itself, which is pretty much common sense. 6 equals 6, x equals x, you get the picture. The symmetric property is where every equation is reversible. So if y minus 2 equals 20, then 20 equals y minus 2. The transitive property is where terms equal to the same term are equal. So if 4 plus 5 equals 9, and 9 equals 6 plus 3, then 4 plus 5 equals 6 plus 3. You basically drop the middle term. Okay, the RST123 trick is an easy way to remember the reflexive, symmetric, and transitive properties. Basically, the 1, 2, and 3 correspond to the number of equal signs that you see in the equation. So with the reflexive property, you will see 1 equal sign. For the symmetric property, you will see 2 equal signs. And for the transitive property, you will see 3 equal signs. The last category of properties that we will be looking at today is the special cases category. So the substitution property is where a new number results after a math operation. So 12 minus 3 is 9. That's the substitutive property. The closure property is where the answer you get from a math operation has to be in the same set of numbers as the numbers that you used for the math operation. So -5 and -4 are both integers, and -5 plus -4 equals -9. So -9 is also an integer, and so this equation would be called closed. This property is normally only seen in higher level math classes. Okay, so let's do some practice problems. This is a problem, and the way I've set it up is in a chart so that you can always keep your properties and your equations organized. So what you're given is that 6i plus 4 plus 2 times the quantity of I plus 3. And then you change it to 6i plus 4 plus 2i plus 6 using the distributive property by multiplying 2 times I and 2 times 3. Then you get 6i plus 2i plus 4 plus 6 by using the commutative property of addition to switch the 2i and the 4. Then your equation reads 8i plus 4 plus 6, which you got by using the substitution property to add 6i and 2i. Finally, you end up with 8i plus 10 by using the substitution property to add the 4 and the 6. Alright, so now we're going to look at a word problem. 14 recruiters for college football normally travel from east to west across Virginia, reviewing high school players to be contacted as possible players for the coming years. On their way, each recruiter visits 124 high schools, but none of the recruiters visit the same school as another. Each high school has exactly 53 players to be reviewed. So I have 3 questions, and if you want to pause the video, you can read the questions, answer them, justify them with a property, and then play the video and I'll give you the answers. Okay, so the answer to the first question is no. The amount of reviewed players would not differ because of the commutative property of addition. So basically, the order that you add the number of schools in doesn't make a difference in your end result. For question 2, yes, the recruiters from Virginia and the recruiters from Missouri review the same number of players because of the reflexive property. The equations to get your answer for both the number of players that the Virginia recruiters reviewed and the equation for the number of players that the Missouri recruiters reviewed is the same. So there would only be one equal sign, and so it's the reflexive property. Lastly, yes, the recruiters from Oregon do the same thing as the recruiters from Virginia because of the transitive property. There are 3 equal signs in the equation because Virginia equals Missouri and Missouri equals Oregon, so Virginia equals Oregon. Alright, here's the last practice problem. You're given 3x plus the quantity of 6 plus 4x. Then you use the commutative property of addition to switch the 4x and the 6's place so that you get 3x plus the quantity of 4x plus 6. Then you use the associative property of addition to move your parentheses from the quantity of 4x plus 6 to the quantity of 3x plus 4x plus 6. Finally, you use the substitution property to add the 3x and the 4x and get your final answer of 7x plus 6. Thanks for watching.